Hey guys, how's it going? On here, and a very warm welcome to a new video on the channel. Today we'll be again covering the highlights from the Ziggo Pro League. This is round 8 if I remember correctly, and we're actually at Suzuka, Japan, which may be a little bit weird because usually Japan is quite late in the season, but not in this scenario because I think it has to do with the Paul Ricard circuit, the French Grand Prix. It is currently in Formula 1, but it isn't yet in this game, so they had to do some shoveling there with the tracks, and that's the reason that we have Suzuka now. I don't complain though, because Suzuka is actually a brilliant track, but so far in qualifying it's not going really well. We're currently in 14th place with, well, 18 seconds to go in this session. I did a first run where I did 2 laps. Those two laps that I did, they were very sloppy as we have the DRS wide open here. So we get one more run, which is this run. I really wanted to do 2 runs again in the end, but for some reason I didn't do it. I put a lot of pressure really on myself, because if I don't have a good run here, then we will be starting way down the field. Now, to be honest, I wasn't all that confident around this track. Usually when I start practicing, within, let's say, 12 to 15 laps, I am relatively high on the leaderboard, but that wasn't the case for this race. So I was actually expecting quite a tough race, especially in quali. A little bit deep there in the second Dagner. We were up in at the end of the first sector, luckily, because a 28.7 is not all that quick at all. The hot lap that I did in time trial, my best lap there was a 27.2, I believe. And I would be relatively happy with a mid-27 around this track in qualifying. 27.5, 27.6-ish thereabouts. So the spoon them. This is really, I think, my Achilles heel around this track. It is a spoon, especially in qualifying mode. In race mode it's quite alright, but in qualifying mode I struggle to find the right balance through there. 8 ends up then at the end of the second sector, so this is looking like a better lap. One more chicane to go then, the Casio triangle I think it is called. Right and left, take a lot of curb here on the left hander, that is very important. Then try to cover as little distance as possible for the run to the line, DRS wide open. And in the end a second up there, so a 27.699. Relatively happy with that. Times were quite close. Again, I put a lot of pressure on my shoulders because that final run really had to be good. Luckily it was quite alright. I could have done better with an ideal lap. I perhaps could have gone second place, but you know what, again, Mate is in a league of his own there. Relatively happy with my time, not really all that happy with my starting place, because 5th is quite far down the grid. So one change I'm going to make on the setup there, you saw it right there. I put the front wing down by 1 click, so we're running 1.9 in race and we were running 2.9 in quali mode. I think it gives a little bit of stability, especially in the first couple of corners, the first 2 turns, especially at the later part of your stint. You can easily spin out if you have the wrong aerodynamic balance. Round 8 then, underway, 5th place it is for us, and again a little bit of a poor start as our car immediately alongside us heading into the first 2 turns. 7th gear already, down the gears, then there's still a car alongside us on the inside, so we need to leave on room. Luckily leaves plenty of room for us as well. The next corner is our inside, so we have the inside line for the next corner, I should say, so there was no problem there. Remaining in 5th place so far, no position changes I don't think in the top 5, in the top 6 I don't think even, so everyone got safe and sound through there, as you can see on the mini-map, which I did not expect. To be honest, I did expect a little bit of KM in the first 2 turns, because it is quite easy to tangle up with someone in the first lap around this track. But luckily that didn't happen, and everyone, like I said, is safe and sound through the first couple of bends, it seems like. So now we can really try to settle a little bit here, get into a nice rhythm, into a nice pace. We took the maximum fuel in our car for this round. That means that we have, well, quite a bit of spare fuel. Roughly 2.5 laps of spare fuel, so we can play you can play around with that quite a lot over the course of this race, which is quite alright. We're going for a 2-stop as well, like you saw at the strategy screen before the race. First stop roughly around lap 14-ish. Second stop then is 28-ish, 30-ish, something thereabout. Also on the super soft tire, and then the last stint is on the soft tire, roughly 23 to 25 laps. First lap completed then, like I said, no position changes up front. Matis is immediately flying off in his Ferrari, like we have seen all season since he has entered the league. So again, it is very impressive what he is doing. And when you see him drive away, as we see a spin, that is exactly what I mean before the race with changing the aerodynamic balance. That was already in lap 2 of the race where you saw Flores spinning off there, so we gained position. But like I said, those first 2 corners, they are extremely dangerous, I feel like, in race trim, in race mode. Not necessarily at the beginning of a stint, but towards the end of the stint, when your tires are starting to wear and you are slightly off the ideal line in the first 2 turns, it is so easy to spin the car around there. And that's what I noticed in practice, and therefore I adjusted the aerodynamic balance, went 1 click down on the front wing, and I can already tell you I have no regrets doing that. Maybe I'll have a little bit less, you know, less front end bite in the corners, or front end grip in the corners, but I think it is worth the compromise. So we skip then to the middle of lap 7. Not a lot has happened. Again, Mate is in the lead, has pulled away quite massively. Gemso up front is putting a lot of pressure on lockdown at the moment, and I'm just sitting back. This was a choice that I made on purpose. I did not really want to mess myself really into that fight. I wanted to wait. I felt like I had good pace, to be honest. I felt like I was able to keep up with lockdown in this case quite easily. So we've got a little bit of a train here behind lockdown. Gemso is very close behind lockdown as we open up lap 8. We both have the DRS. Gemso and I both have the DRS on lockdown. Gemso actually goes onto the inside. I think there was a little bit of lag there. He is the inside line for turn 1. Here we go. They are side by side and they make a bit of contact. Also Gemso goes off there, like we saw with Flores, goes off in the first turn, and so we gain another place. So a bit of a touch there with lockdown. So we gained 2 positions in the first 8 laps, all because of people in front of us making mistakes or making contact in that first turn. So again, like I was talking about in the previous lap, I wanted to wait a little bit, try to be patient. But when Gemso would overtake lockdown, which he was trying to do, and he would successfully overtake him and pull away a little bit, that's the moment where I would, you know, burn up a little bit more fuel as well and try to overtake lockdown, in order to not lose Gemso, you know, out of sight. But that obviously hasn't happened with Gemso, spinning, not really spinning off, but having his moment there in turn 1. So now it's my turn to try and overtake lockdown, but I had a very calm approach here, to be honest, and you know, I was quite confident. I did not really think like I had the pace around this track, but the longer I went into this race, the more I had the feeling that you know, the pace was quite alright actually. And obviously when you see first place pulling away massively, I wanted to say this before, you don't really compare yourself anymore with the guy who is leading all the time, because I only mean this of course as a compliment, but every time he is in this league, or ever since he has been in this league, he has been qualifying in first and then he just pulls away, and that's simply it. So it's kind of like, I don't mean this in any, you know, kind of disrespectful way. I even think he should pick this up as a compliment, but you don't even really like compare yourself anymore with him, because he is on that kind of level, you know, that high kind of level. So you're basically, for us, at least this is how I feel. I don't know how the rest obviously feels, but for us, at least for me, I won't speak for myself. For me, it feels like second place is the best possible thing here. Second place would be like winning the race. You see? I don't know if that makes any kind of sense. Again, it's only a compliment really to Metis, who's always leading. But you don't even think about him anymore really, because he is on that high level. Now one thing that I should also mention, as we are in lap 11 of this race, trying to put a little bit more pressure here on lockdown. Didn't want to do, okay, didn't want to go for any like unnecessary risk or anything like that. I wanted to wait until the pit stop age. Of course, if I have a good chance, I'll try to overtake lockdown. But also, at the start of this lap 11, you saw at the bottom of the screen, someone has disconnected. And when I saw that, I was actually quite frustrated, because I was closing up to lockdown, perhaps preparing myself for an overtake if there was a good chance. But because someone has disconnected, if you guys know how F1 2017 worked, when someone disconnects in an online lobby, there is a slipstream glitch where you don't really get any more slipstream at all. You also don't have any more dirty air. But I was like, okay, so I have no more slipstream anymore. That's gonna make overtaking a little bit harder. So I was a little bit frustrated with seeing someone disconnect there, but you have to deal with it. We're again quite close to lockdown. One more thing that I should mention, we have got a new teammate since previous round. I should have mentioned this previous round, but I didn't, I completely forgot. The car behind, Racecraft KLM, He is actually my new teammate, and I'm actually very happy with my teammate because maybe some of you know him, maybe some of you don't, but the car behind is actually called Boris Poelstra, and Boris Poelstra is a Dutch guy that I know from sim racing, which I did quite a bit before entering this league. And I actually know him from that, as we are in lap 12 around the outside of the first 2 turns, outside of lockdown. Can we do it? You're still side by side. I have the inside line for the next corner. Should we be able to pull this one off? And yes, we do indeed. So that is second place. That is one of those possibilities, those opportunities where I was talking about before. If I do have a proper opportunity, then I'll go for it. And you saw it there. We absolutely went for it around the outside of the first 2 turns. Then you have the inside line for the next corner, which is turn 3. Making that move stick quite nicely. And speaking of my teammate, that is actually a move that I practiced with my teammate. I'm really glad that I have Boris now as my teammate. Like I said, I know him from sim racing. We talked with each other quite a bit. I think we get along quite well, quite nicely. And before the race now, I actually have someone to practice with. And I'm a little bit weird, I think, in this sense, but I either want to practice on my own or with my teammate. I never really, or rarely, enter a lobby where there are like 8 people practicing around the same track. I much prefer practicing with someone that I can trust, that I know has decent racecraft, and in my opinion Boris Poelstra has that. So it is very nice to have a practice session before the race starts with Boris Poelstra and with KLM. And usually what I would do is I would just practice on my own in time trial, but practicing in an online session is a little bit more realistic. It shows a little bit more, or it is a little bit more like the real deal, if that makes any sense. So previous lap, lockdown went into the pit lane. This is my in lap then, because we will respond to lockdown. I'll try to focus a little bit more on this race, but I had to get a few things out of the way, of course, with having a new teammate there. By the way, KLM has got good pace, so that is also nice, of course. A teammate having good pace, it's always nice to have, because you can compare yourself a little bit with him. What I want to say, this is my in lap. Lockdown went into the pit lane previous lap, so he is going for an undercut. To be fair, I would be a little bit gutted if Lockdown ends up having a successful undercut on us, so that's why I responded 1 lap later, which is this lap. But at the same time, one thing that I noticed in the previous stint, in the first stint of this race, was I don't really need to, feel worried about my pace, because the pace is quite alright if I have to be honest. Lockdown behind, actually Lockdown flying by, so Lockdown was able to make that undercut work, and we have to start all over again. Well, all over again is a little bit exaggerated, but we need to try to overtake him again in the course of this stint, at least over the course of the next, what is it, 39 laps before the end of the race. So let's try to do that. Start from 0 more or less. But Lockdown there going successfully for the undercut and immediately overtaking this Ferrari. Ferrari backs out there, luckily backed out there, because if he was on the apex of the first Dagner, as Lockdown makes a mistake here, so immediately putting a little bit of pressure on him again. If that Ferrari were to park it on the apex of the first Dagner, it could have ended in tears. Luckily he lifted and led us through. Also, pay attention to the different strategy that Gemsel has chosen ever since he went off the track in the first turn. At this stage, Gemsel and KLM, they were both in my head quite a bit. Like I said before, I didn't really feel worried about the pace, especially towards the end of a stint. I feel like we have good pace compared to Lockdown. Lockdown was struggling a little bit more, I feel like, at the end of the stint compared to the start of his stint. So I knew I have the advantage probably on him when it comes to the end of this stint. So that gave me confidence. That actually gave me a little bit of patience as well. I don't have to overtake him right away here. I can stay behind him, try to look after my tires a little bit, which is doable because there is no dirty air, so you don't really pick up a lot of understeer. A little bit of a look on the inside of Lockdown, but not gonna go for it. But again, like I said, maybe in 10 laps time my tires will be in a better shape and Lockdown will be struggling a little bit more, and we can overtake him then. So it gave a little bit of confidence, it gave a little bit of patience. And again, we are in a little bit of traffic here, but my eyes, they are very much on Gemsel and KLM, because I can tell you right away, KLM also has gone for the soft tire, so they opted for a different strategy. Skating going deep in the first, or sorry, the second Dagner, We should be able to overtake him here. He's still alongside, so we need to leave him room on the hairpin here, which we do. Oh, a bit of contact there. But nonetheless, making that move stick. A little bit surprised with the contact there. I thought I left enough room on the inside of the hairpin, but not gonna make a big deal out of that one, obviously. But again, my eyes were very much on Gemsel and KLM as well. They opted for the soft tire, and they will be on the super soft tire at the end probably. So they will be very, very fast at the end, which means we need to make the most out of this super soft stint. We need to try to create as big of a gap as possible to the guys who are running on softs, so that they need to make up a little bit of ground when they are on the super softs and we are on the softer tire. So lap 16 then, again first place, well out of sight. We are battling here for a maximum of P2, just like we were in the previous race at Canada. Maybe you remember what happened there. I had a little bit of an issue with my wheel, when my wheel was stuck in position for roughly half a second, but it was enough to lose a piece of our front wing as we ended up with a face full of barriers. I was really praying that, or keeping my fingers crossed, that wouldn't happen in this race. But so far so good, and I do think there's a little bit of how would you call it? I think there's a little bit of an improvement in the driving. I think I'm starting to slowly but surely, as we go on the inside of Roger here on the hairpin. There we go. What I wanted to say, I feel like there's a very slow improvement in terms of driving. Slowly but surely, we are a bit of a weird situation there behind us. Slowly but surely, we are, I think, gaining a little bit of, not necessarily pace, but a little bit more consistency in the race. I feel like I'm starting to make less mistakes, be a little bit more confident with the pace, and that leads into more consistency, and consistency is very, very important. Lap 19 then, first Dagner, a little bit of a cut. That is the first warning that we pick up here. Quite easy to cut the first Dagner there. I wouldn't be surprised if people pick up penalties from that, but in lap 19, that was our first warning of the race. So if I just keep this momentum up, I think we will be fine, and we won't pick any, we won't be picking up any penalties in this race. Lap 20, again, starting to close down on lockdown. KLM, our teammate in the meantime, has managed to overtake Gemsel. So it's now KLM behind us, and then it's Gemsel. But again, lap 20, starting lap 21, and putting a little bit more pressure on lockdown. Let's see whether we can overtake him here. It seems like we'll have a good shot, and indeed we do. We're gonna have to do it again around the outside, just like we did in lap 11. But I wanted to, try and go for a little bit of a surprise. I completely failed by doing that. But I was like, okay, maybe if I go for the outside again, he probably expects me to go around the outside. So I wanted to do something different. I was hoping he would carry a lot of speed into the first turn, expecting us to go around the outside, then perhaps go a little bit too deep into the second corner so that we could perform a switchback and overtake him with a better exit. But that completely failed. Nonetheless, that's alright. I didn't want to go around the outside there again. I thought it was too predictable, if that makes any sense. And again, I don't feel the need to overtake lockdown as soon as I can. I feel like I've got good chances actually at beating lockdown. So my head right now was mostly at what are we gonna do, or what are the soft guys going to do in the final stage of this race. Will they be much quicker than us when they are on the super soft and we are on the soft? They probably will be. So I was looking to make the gap as big as possible, and here's another opportunity on the inside of the Casio, trying off third gear into this corner, and indeed we make the move stick. So again, able to get by lockdown, and will we have DRS? Yes, we will have DRS, so that will help massively to the friends from lockdown behind. Lap 22 of this race, so far so good, no problems at all. Pace is good, and that leads us to actually being in third place. I think I said before that we went into second place. Apologies for that, that is a mistake. We are actually in third place because overtaking in front is yet to pit. But I can already tell you, overtaking is not a threat for us. He has pitted, and that means that we are now in second place. So he is not a threat in this race, forget about that. Second place, the battle is simply on between Lockdown, Gemsel, KLM and us, and that's really it. So we've effectively got 4 cars battling for second place. And if you are like me, it's effectively 4 cars battling for the win. Like I said before, Mate is complete league of his own. I'm not even, you know, thinking about him. If it's down to me, you know, I am leading this race right now. You know, again, this is not, you know, disrespectful. It's a little bit of a joke. Of course, Metis is leading this race by 18.1 seconds, but you can see the gap there, 18.1 seconds in 27 laps already. That is very impressive. But actually, let's keep that gap in mind, right? So, let's say Metis right now has got a gap of 18 seconds in 27 laps, okay? We have got, what is it? 26 laps to go, right? Yes, that is right. We've got 26 laps to go. The gap right now is 18 seconds. We're roughly halfway through this race. We have got clean air. Let's see what our pace is like compared to Metis, right? I mean, why not? Of course, we'll also be focusing on lockdown behind and on the guys who are on the softs. Oh, by the way, this is quite crucial to tell you guys. I was pushing very, very hard at this stage. Try to create a gap to lockdown. Lockdown is not pitting yet, but why do I say this? Why am I pushing so hard at this stage? I wanted to make sure that Lockdown could not do the same thing as he did in the first stint. I wanted to make sure Lockdown could not go for successful undercut. Again, Lockdown is the first out of us to come into the pit lane. I was working on the gap. Towards the end of the stint there, I was willing to burn up more fuel, and as you can see, we've got roughly 0.2 laps of fuel left right now. So we burned quite a bit of fuel trying to create a gap to Lockdown. I think when Lockdown entered the pit lane, the gap was roughly 1.4-ish seconds thereabout. So, if I have a good inlet right now, we may be able to fend off an undercut from Lockdown and stay ahead of him, unlike we did in the first stint. So, I'm pushing quite a bit here. Again, the gap to Metis is right now 18.7 seconds. So, he has gained roughly 6 tenths in, what is it? 3 laps time, I think? I think it is 3 laps time. So, I think that is the strength from Metis. He doesn't really gain like 1 second every lap, or 1 lap, and then the next lap he gains like 2 tenths. His strength is that he consistently gains 2-3 tenths per lap, and obviously when you gain 2-3 tenths a lap, it doesn't necessarily seem like a lot, but when that gets built up over the course of a race, it does make up for obviously quite a big gap, but that's where his strength lies. He's very consistently quick. The in lap so far is going quite well. We are 1.5 tenths down on our personal best, which is a 131.7. Previous lap, I think at the end of the second sector we were consistently like 4 or 5 tenths down on our previous or personal best. So our in lap has gone quite well. Hopefully we are able to, you know, stay ahead of Lockdown this time. I really wanted to stay ahead of Lockdown for this final stint, because again, the soft runners, they were in my head quite a bit. I wanted to be in clean air with no car in front of me and try to build or work on the gap. So here we go then, exiting the pit lane, Lockdown behind, and it seems like there's still quite a way to him. Yes, there is quite a distance to him. So 22 laps to go, and we have successfully fended off Lockdown from performing an undercut there, which is very good news. Very good news indeed. He is, you know, again within a second, but I was gonna tolerate that. Again, I was very, very calm at this point. I knew maybe Lockdown will put a lot of pressure on us at the beginning part of the stint. If I can fend that off, I probably will have the upper hand again at the later part of the stint, because in the first 2 super soft stints, again, Lockdown was quite fast at the start of the stint, but he didn't necessarily collapse as KLM was in the pit lane there. He didn't necessarily collapse, but he was, you know, in relative terms, at the end of the stint he was quite a little bit slower compared to the start of his stint. So if we are able to fend off Lockdown here at the start of our stint, it is looking very surprising in terms of getting a second place here. But again, don't forget the soft runners. We saw Lockdown there. Lockdown, he went in, or sorry, not Lockdown, KLM, he went into the pit lane previous lap. So he is gonna have to do 16 plus 3 is 19 laps on the super soft tire. Oh, yeah, that's it, on the super soft tire. Which is doable. It's quite a long stretch, but it is doable. So lap 38, you can see here burning up quite a lot of fuel. I was, again, as Jamsel also went to the pit lane, so we're back in normal order, so to say. I was burning up quite a bit of fuel here, trying to create a gap to lockdown, but also trying to defend from lockdown. Lockdown had impressive pace, to be honest, at the start of this stint, more than I expected, better pace than I expected. So it was quite difficult to stay ahead of him, and I really had to burn up more fuel than I really would have liked, because something tells me at this point in the race, something told me, as we see the gap to Matus, 21.6, something told me at this stage of the race it was quite vital to actually save a little bit of fuel to defend from the super soft runners who are quickly closing up on us. Lap 44, 31.2, gap to our teammate, 4.2 seconds, gap to Matus, 23 seconds, gap to lockdown, half a second. So lockdown is sticking with us nicely, but then again we approach the later part of the stint, and lockdown again starts to fall back a little bit. I don't know whether it is simply his fuel strategy that does that, or it is simply his pace at the start of, or sorry, at the end of the stint being worse than in the start of the stint. Whatever it is, I am not complaining. Lap 45 of the race, and it's going incredibly well. And actually, it was going so well, I was quite confident we were able to pick up second place here. If I can right now create a gap to lockdown, I think it will be, yeah, we are creating a gap to lockdown. The gap is now 1.4 seconds. It's suddenly well over a second. Lockdown perhaps making a mistake in the first sector. And at this stage I was like, I'm not gonna let this one go. No way in hell I'm gonna give this second place away. It is true, you can see it on the minimap, the super soft runners, they are closing up on us. Yes, they are. But I did not feel like they were closing quick enough. And if they close up on lockdown, they first need to deal with lockdown, which will perhaps cost them a little bit of time, because they will be battling. And when it costs them a little bit of time, it's obviously in our advantage. So we are, you know, close to opening up lap 46 here, and I felt quite confident. And the gap that I was opening up to lockdown at this stage also gave me the confidence to run a little bit lower in terms of fuel mixture. You can see we're again in the green. We are running spare fuel again. And funnily enough, as we are starting to open up the last lap of the race here, funnily enough, when the gap to lockdown opened up and I was starting to run a lower fuel mixture, I think the lap times were actually a little bit quicker. And I still feel like at some stages of the race I try to demand a little bit too much from myself, and I make mistakes because of that. And this race was actually a very, how would you call it? A very nice experience, in the sense that I learned a little bit better how to deal with the demand that I sometimes, you know, put on my own shoulders. The gap to Matus, 25 seconds. So remember, in lap 27 the gap was 18 seconds. He has gained 7 seconds in the meantime, which is quite a bit. But if you calculate that down to the gap per lap, it is like, at least I estimate, it's roughly 2 to 3 tenths per lap. That is something that, you know, if you can work on being 2 tenths per lap faster, then you can perhaps try to challenge Matus. But I feel like that is a little bit of a step too much still, a step too far. KLM in the meantime overtook lockdown. I don't know where Jamsel is. I don't know whether Jamsel is in front of lockdown. I wasn't all that bothered anyway. I was very happy with the second place, and it came a little bit as a surprise of a surprise, especially after qualifying in 5th place. I did not expect this at all, but this may sound weird, but some people will know that I was quite, you know, competitive in sim racing, very competitive in fact, and that always gave me a blast. And ever since I really like stopped sim racing competitively, and you can see here the lap times were quite consistent, especially in the soft stint. We only gained one warning, by the way, in this race, and I was quite happy with that. But what I want to say, I was really competitive in sim racing, and that always gave me a blast, and it always gave a brilliant feeling. And ever since I stopped with having that competitive mindset, I never really had that feeling again up until the final 10 laps or so of this race, because in the final 10 laps of this race I realized that you know, that second place was actually very good, and the race in general was very good. I didn't make a lot of mistakes in this race, and the pace was quite alright. It wasn't the best ever, but it was quite alright. I do need to be honest and say that I do think that I got lucky in the sense that Flores and also Gemsel had their moments, because that definitely put myself in a bit of a better position. But nonetheless, I think this is the happiest I have been overall with a performance in the entire season so far. And that is very nice. Again, I got a little bit of a slight bit of the feeling back that I had when I was doing sim racing and took that very serious. It's like in the last 10 laps you kind of get a sense of happiness, and you're happy with the accomplishment that you have made. But you know, if we want to win races this season, then there's still a little bit of an extra step to go. And again, 25 seconds seems like a lot, but it is 2 tenths per lap. So you need to find like 2-3 tenths per lap if you want to challenge with Matis. But again, I feel like that is still a little bit of a step too far. But this second place does give a little bit of a boost. So let's see how the rest of this of the season will go then. I really hope to carry this momentum forwards. And then we'll see how this goes. I think the second place has been coming a little bit ever since Canada, because Canada was quite a good race as well, where we were also battling for second place. But also now at Suzuka, achieving second place, I'm happy with that. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this race. If you did, then I would sincerely appreciate a like. Let's keep this momentum forwards, let's keep it going. The next race, I hope to be there again at the top of the field. But you never know, next race I may be out of the race at the end of the first turn, you know, first lap, you never know it, so that's sometimes how racing goes. Thanks all for watching. Again, if you have enjoyed this video, I'd sincerely appreciate a like. Once again, thanks all for watching, take care of yourselves, and goodbye, see you later.